A lot of business owners aren't setting big enough goals for themselves. They'll go for a 10% increase, a 20% increase, small incremental gains. And while it's good to have small incremental gains to build up to a bigger goal, people don't have that bigger goal in place. And I'm going to give you guys a big goal. How can you triple the value of your business? And this isn't some fantasy land thing, because we have a guest who specializes in helping you do just that, triple the value of your business. He's an exit expert who coaches entrepreneurs to extraordinary exits through sale or succession. So if you're looking to accelerate your business, if you're looking to triple its value, this is going to be a great breakthrough success episode for you guys. So our guest who joins us is none other than David Young. David, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Great to be with you.
David, it is such a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success. And I feel like there are so many business owners who just miss out on what they should be making from their businesses. For people who are selling their businesses, I feel like they leave a lot of money on the table. This is something that we were talking about a little before we got on for our interview. So I'm wondering if you could share with us, like, what are those key elements we have to focus on to actually triple our business's value?
You're absolutely right. The reason I am working with owner managers with my own business, Shield, which I set up in 2001, is because it was just so sad and frustrating to see how many owner managers were leaving value on the table and getting shafted when it came to sale by the sophisticated repeat buyers and their bankers and their lawyers who know all the tricks of the trade when it comes to the actual transaction. I think it's helpful to think of value in terms of three building blocks. So you've got the standalone value, which is to do with what the business will produce in terms of profits and cash flow by itself. You've also got synergy value, which is what it can do in terms of cost sharing and revenue generation when it's put together with another business. And you've got what I call strategic value, which is another part of combination value to do with how a potential buyer can use it as a stepping stone to something else. And the interesting thing is that strategic value and synergy value together can be actually a multiple of standalone value if you find buyers for whom your business really is the missing piece of their jigsaw. And I've seen some extraordinary examples of that. But the seller won't extract that value unless they are alert to the possibility that it exists. And it can be, indeed, it can be a multiple of standalone value, not just 10% more. And unless the process is conducted in a way that pushes the buyers to their point of indifference, to the point at which they'd get an inadequate return if they paid any more. But a lot of the listeners I know will be saying, well, hang on, I'm not thinking about selling. I'm not even thinking about exiting at all, even through succession. I'm just enjoying building my business and I'm gunning for success. And that's fine and that's great. But what I would say is you want to be building value, because building value is a bit like, when you take off in a plane, that the first rule for pilots, I think, is gain height, gain height, gain height. And only if you build value are you going to be able to attract and retain the best staff, be able to invest in all the things you want to invest in, new products, marketing, sales, and so forth. Only if you gain value can you attract investment in your business, whether it's or lending, finance, whether it's debt or equity. And then ultimately, only if you've built value are you going to have a sort of happy ever after exit experience if and when you come to that point. So in coming back to standalone value, there's a tremendous amount more that can be had than most entrepreneurs tend to believe. And it's not their fault necessarily, because private equity certainly doesn't want owner managers and entrepreneurs to believe there's a lot to play for. They would rather buy their businesses at knockdown multiples. And in the UK, we're seeing 3 times EBIT being quoted as what a nondescript, non-tech business, may go for. But whether it's 3, 4, 5 times EBIT, the private equity wants owner managers to think in a small box like that. Whereas actually, there are a couple of phenomena that really work to the advantage of the entrepreneur. I mean, as Jim Slater, the investor, once said, elephants don't run, whereas small businesses can run. They can grow fast if you take the time to plan how to get yourself on a growth track. And the message in my book, How to Build and Extract the Value of Your Business, is that actually it's easier to double profits than you think. If you focus on 3 parameters over a couple of years, you can probably double your profits in 2 years, 3 at the most, without slashing costs, because of the power of compound growth, basically, in three particular areas. Now, the other good news is that if you've managed to get yourself on a growth track, say doubling profits in 3 years, you will automatically have increased the multiple which your business deserves, to which is applied to those profits. So if you compare a business which just stays with its same profits over the next 3 years and is on a multiple of, say, 5, to one that doubles its profits over 3 years and might deserve, in that case, a multiple of 10, you can see that you've quadrupled the value of the business, actually, because you've doubled the multiple and doubled the profits. So there's a double whammy effect of getting onto a growth track. And that's something that everyone, from a financial background well understands. The private equity wallers understand it extremely well. But a lot of owner managers who've come from a technical background maybe don't grasp that fact, that it's growth that drives value, because growth of profits drives growth of multiple. So you get this double benefit in terms of value growth just from standalone efforts, even before you consider what you can do to increase synergy and what you can do to get into the crosshairs of the big, powerful potential buyers that can add such a lot in terms of strategic value as well. So there are several sort of theaters of activity to focus on. And I would say to any entrepreneur, even if you're not thinking of sale, focus on weaving profit growth into the business so that you can automatically increase the multiple that will be applied to those profits. And you can triple the value of your business in 3 years or less, just on a standalone basis, and you can do more when you operate in those other domains as well. It's very exciting, but this is a kind of excitement that the private equity guys would rather keep for themselves. And I'm there to help entrepreneurs get a fair deal when it comes to them turning to their exits, because I'm sick of seeing them shafted by the sophisticated buyers.
And David brings up a lot of interesting stuff, and this is value regardless of if you really want to sell your business and you're in that game, or if you just want to, like, your business or your baby, you just want to keep that forever, pass it on. Because David mentions, among other things, this importance of profit, because if you make $100,000 in revenue, but you have to pay $110,000 to make that revenue, you're in a hole. And you're better off if you just make 500 and spend 400 to make that 500 than it is to be in a hole. So I'm wondering if you could share with us, what are some of the things we could do to boost our profit? Because I feel like so many people focus on that top line without thinking of the bottom line.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, there shouldn't be blamed for that, because we do see examples of businesses that have gone for astronomical values, even when they're not even producing profits yet. But that's because they're in game-changing sectors where there's a strong expectation that they will break through to profits. If you're in that lucky position, then maybe you don't need to worry too much. Maybe you're getting financed by investors to go after a sales growth that will ultimately turn into profits. But for most of us in more mundane businesses, we absolutely need to demonstrate that profits and profit growth are there. And so, of course, revenue growth is critical. And there are various ways of getting revenue growth. I mean, quite often one can do more in terms of price increases than you assume. If you've got a distinctive product, it's worth exploring that. There are probably incremental customers, incremental channels, maybe incremental geographies to go after. Many companies that are entrepreneurial, in my experience, are not great at sales and marketing, especially if they're coming from a technical background or an engineering background. There's a lot that can be done on the sales and marketing side. And Mark, you're the guru in terms of digital marketing and all that can bring. And that's an essential part of the tool bag these days, which again, many entrepreneurs haven't mastered as well as they could and should. But then beyond sales growth, there's also just working a way to get steady improvements in operating profitability. Because if you can get a 7% compound, if you can get a 7% improvement in that, in your operating margin over 3 years, and if you can get a 7% increase in sales over 3 years, and then a 7% improvement in your overhead ratio, which is overheads over sales, you will double your profits in 3 years. That is set out in my little book, and it's just a simple matter of compound math. So that can happen, and I illustrate this, without you actually having to slash and burn overheads. If you can get a little bit of growth in sales while you contain your overheads and improve the operating margin, then you'll get a doubling of sales in 3 years with those 7% compound improvements in those 3 areas. But I understand not everybody can do that. So my encouragement is do what you can, where you can, in one of those 3 areas, or one or more of those 3 areas.
And it's interesting how there are people who, they want to pursue the new tactic or they want to do the new strategy, but you really have to know your numbers to achieve success, like knowing what your profit is. And part of knowing your numbers is looking at that compound effect come into play, where a little bit of improvement built up over time. When we started the show, I said, people set small incremental goals. That's good when you have a big goal in mind, like the doubling of profit, the tripling of your business valuation, like having those goals in mind so you're getting somewhere with your incremental gains. But just to not have that goal in play can, you want to dream big here. You want to advance even more with your business. And on that path to tripling the value of our businesses, how do you suggest we stay strong during some of the more challenging points that can happen along the journey?
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I've been an entrepreneur myself since 2001, and I know what it's like. You start off with high hopes and a strong sense of that you've got something to give, and you get bogged down running the whole business, unable to find the staff that or maybe to begin with, unable to afford the staff that you'd like, then unable to find staff, maybe having blind spots too. This was my case. I was from a strong financial background. I needed to build a team that could help handle the whole range of activities, and then also be able to track the profitability of individual products. I'd just like to touch on a point you mentioned, because you're absolutely right. Knowing the numbers is important in terms of profitability of each product. Quite a lot of entrepreneurs I come across haven't managed to figure out whether they're getting gross profit from all of their product areas. And so if you can cull the loss-making products, you can be well on the path to better profit growth. But I would say there are 2 things, the 2 bits of good news for entrepreneurs on this path to increasing value, because entrepreneurs have got a couple of benefits here that your average CEO hasn't. And one is to do with the fact that entrepreneurs are typically in the small and medium business sector. And as we said, elephants don't run. So getting really good growth from a small base is much more feasible, actually. So although as entrepreneurs we can feel we're up against it, actually we've got the ability to achieve higher growth rates than most large and established business could ever hope or dream to have. And the second thing is, bear in mind that this key person dependence issue, the fact that an entrepreneurial business depends so heavily on the entrepreneur, is something that puts off buyers. But if you can overcome it, the swing factor is you can get a big upward swing in your valuation by demonstrating that your business will run without you. And here we're into the domain of building a team, being able to delegate, having the ability to define your processes, routinize them, standardize them, maybe automate them, and being able to demonstrate as much as possible that the business runs without you or could run without you. And again, there's a sort of double benefit here, because obviously, if you can do that, you've got the valuation benefit of there not being the risk of key person dependence, which is a major turnoff for buyers of owner-managed businesses. But you've also got the fact that you as an entrepreneur are then free to devote your time to working on the business rather than in the business, to use the parlance of Gerber and the E-myth. And you've also got the freedom to spend your time doing what you're best at and what you probably enjoy doing in the business, rather than having to do a bunch of other things as well, and burning the candle at both ends. And you've also got better lifestyle balance. So, paradoxically, and I know that we entrepreneurs, we sort of get a kick out of the business depending on us, don't we? But paradoxically, if we can demonstrate the thing will run without us, by having it run without us and by taking vacations or by spending, a day a week on the golf course or whatever it is we do for balance in life, then not only will we increase the value, but we'll have a better quality of life.
And regardless, if you're trying to sell your business, demonstrating it could go on without you is a big value piece. But even if you're not trying to sell your business, David mentions those benefits, like the lifestyle, the ability to focus on what you're truly great at. So I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what your goals are for your business, but you should have that long-term thinking of, I should be able to hand some of my different tasks off to other people so I can focus on what I'm truly good at. And David, I know you mentioned some things already. You mentioned delegating, you mentioned automating, you mentioned systems. One of the things also is that, people don't want to hand off their baby. Like, they don't want to hand off some of the tasks around them. So how do you suggest we get better at handing off things and getting to that point where the business could run without us?
Well, I think task definition is very important. Process definition is important. It's possible to, retain and reserve the things that you feel are critical if you're worried about giving away key aspects of know-how or whatever it is. But I think it's important to get good quality of help in all the business functions. And, you've got to remember that your business value is going to be increased and your ability to raise funding is going to be increased to the extent that you can reduce the dependence on you. So, ultimately it's worth it. There's, a lot of help that can be had in terms of courses on delegating and so on. It's something we help with at Shield. We'll help with coaching and consulting on value building, team building, delegating, process definition, and process automation, using some software tools that are out there that enable one not only to map a process, but to sort of cut it live and automate it. But I think basically, in most businesses, value is increased by defining processes and making sure that nobody is indispensable. I've seen a number of businesses where some key employees had got themselves into positions where they'd made themselves indispensable and they were reluctant to record their knowledge and help establish corporate knowledge databases. And one's got to overcome that, because if you lose those key people, then the business does take a knock in terms of its ability to function and in terms of its value. So I think I would encourage entrepreneurs to see themselves as the sort of architects of a business system that will run without them.
I love the architect analogy because it gives the idea of, a lot of the super successful CEOs, they're not doing the the heavy work, they're the decision makers. They're the ones who oversee stuff. And I know a lot of people right now, they're grinding on their businesses. That's like, they're all in on that. But you do want to think, how can I bring some people on the team? How can I delegate some stuff? And then you become that person who has the systems in place, has people who, like, you're telling them what to do. Like, it's easy for people to get on board with the program and get on board with what you're doing and really embrace the work that you're doing. That's just going to be one of the many things that helps you triple the value of your business and boost your profits, because again, you have time to focus on different things. I know David has a 3X valuation boot camp that he's been working really hard on and can really help you guys. So I'm wondering, David, if you could share a little bit of that with us and just some places we can find you.
Yeah, sure. Over the years, I started out helping people sell and achieving top dollar in sales, but I've had clients come to me saying, can you just help us get on to a new level in terms of the business, in terms of valuation? We don't have sale in mind. We just want to increase value. And so we developed a program we call the Business Improvement Program. It was a 6-month consulting project we bring in a team and work with a company for 6 months. What it strikes me there's a need for is having something that's a kind of 6-week opportunity. We've distilled that into 6 weeks where entrepreneurs can come onto a group coaching program. I'm calling it the 3X Valuation Bootcamp. And the idea is in 6 weeks, you will end up with a blueprint that is personalized to your business. We'll value the business, but you'll also understand what the levers are for improving the value of businesses generally, but of your specific value. So how do you achieve a tripling in the value of your business in the fastest possible time, which I would expect to be 3 years at the most, but it might be a lot less. So the idea is everyone will come off this boot camp after 6 weeks, and we're going to run it from the beginning of April, with a blueprint for tripling the value of their business and an understanding of the value drivers and an economic model which shows the sensitivity of the valuation to the factors in their business. So they've got a sense of what they can play for and how, and a route map. It gets back to goal setting, a route map that will help them go for something exciting, and will also help them, and this is part of the plan, part of the blueprint is, how do you get yourself out from underneath your business? How do you free yourself up so that it is not key person dependence? And what can you do to build the team, to delegate, to define processes, and so forth? Now, for some, that'll mean, certainly staying in the saddle as the CEO. But, for others, it may mean delegating the CEO function and getting on with, what they love and do best, which might be, in the product development area or in the sales area. That remains to be seen. That'll be specific, case by case. But the idea of this thing is, let's get entrepreneurs together who want to come up with a blueprint for tripling their value, so that you don't just go through another year of firefighting and failing to get the value growth and the sales growth and the profit growth that ought to be achievable, but that so often elude us as entrepreneurs because we're just so busy with the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just that idea for anyone to boost their sales and profitability. It doesn't matter if you want to sell your business or not. And if you do want to sell your business, his program is definitely going to help you. If you don't want to sell your business, it's still a tremendous program for being able to accelerate your brand. So the link to David's boot camp will be in the show notes for anyone who is interested in joining. But once again, David, thank you so much for coming on Breakthrough Success. It was a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.